click the link. This week, we are going to be looking at the soul trait of honor. This is a weekly meeting where we get together in community, where we can use some of the Jewish wisdom from a practice called Mussar to help us develop skills to cope with the pandemic. And we have an opportunity to connect together one-on-one as part of this process. As we often do, last week was a little bit of an exception, but I'd like to start us off with a meditation where we can become present and leave the worldly concerns behind and create a sacred space together. So please kind of sit back and make yourself comfortable and close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own speed of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car pass on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Now all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema, and on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. And Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, that was very refreshing, I found. I hope you did as well. Here, what we are going to do is just a reminder of where our journey started with a sort of a spontaneous get-together, which has turned into looking at a number of different soul traits week after week. And today we're going to be focusing on honor. And you can think about that as, what is it that you need versus what is it that you can give? And we're going to start with this next question, which came up which was the inspiration for my blog post this week about my haircut, which someone commented I think turned out pretty well. But I'd like to know, when you look at yourself in the pandemic right now, what is it that you need? I think about, for me, one of the things is really having just time on my own. I mean, I'm with 3 other people in the house. It's hard to just kind of, and I'm a pretty extroverted person, but I still find that I need some time just to kind of be on my own and read or to watch my own TV shows without someone coming in with a question or two people coming in with a conversation. And that's certainly one thing that I would probably add to my wish list for the moment. Would anyone else care to share?
I think that I've had a very similar experience. Me and my partners are all, together on this, and I personally get overstimulated really easily, especially from sound, and it's a small
Mm,
space. So
mm,
we've had to similarly kind of be like, all right, right now I am going to another room and I need as much quiet as possible. And it's difficult, navigating that when people don't have things to go out for. It used to be a lot more natural, but I found that we've had to work really hard at getting better at communicating what we need,
mm,
and making it, it's not really implied anymore. Like, it needs to be really explicitly put out there,
mm.
because I found, and apparently this was the case across the board, even when we were taking alone time to kind of recenter, we felt really guilty about it. So as silly as it may sound for some, like I started just scheduling it in, being like, all right, from this time to this time this afternoon, I'm going and I'm reading or doing whatever I want to do, but really making those boundaries a lot more explicit, because a lot of other boundaries have become, fuzzier due to quarantining.
Thank you, Andrea. I love that. Yes, being explicit with the boundaries. Fantastic. Who else?
Wendy, can I
Yeah.
chime in? Okay. For my job, I need some questions answered. It's kind of important for decision making. And since the pandemic, I have not been able to actually reach the people who can answer the questions. So yesterday and today, I became kind of frustrated. And I just had to get in touch with my mentor who lives across the country to talk to him a little bit about not being able to get these questions answered. And he's in the same spot as I am. So I think camaraderie is really important to me right now. Like a sense of somebody understanding what's going on for me, because it's a little strange, it's not the norm.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the year, I think. It's a little strange. It's not the norm. Yeah, this is really different. And what I'm hearing you say is sort of on two levels. One is like professionally, you need these questions answered, but that's not available. Like when I asked that question at the bottom of the email, what do you need? Someone wrote back, well, I need the pandemic to be over. And that's not something that any of us can control. You can't control when you hear from these other people. So you took a different strategy. Well, how can I get some camaraderie? How can I get some support or something else to sort of help me manage this uncomfortable situation? So that's a great that you took that step, and that you recognize that since you couldn't get this one need met, you were able to meet it in another way. So it didn't bother you as much. Thank you.
I have the opposite problem from the first person. I need more human contact. I live alone, and I need ways to keep in touch with people and reach out to people. So things like this, but also I need to push myself, I think, to make some more phone calls. So it gets lonesome. Gets a little bit lonesome being here all, and I'm very limited because I'm not really supposed to go any place or be out in public at all. So
right. So more human contact, and so yeah. And what I'm hearing you say is, okay, so that means what I can control is who I reach out to, and so taking a few more proactive steps to address that.
Yeah, I miss seeing my friends. I miss seeing my friends. I miss seeing the horses. I just miss being with people. And I'm not somebody that doesn't manage solitude well, because I like solitude. But enough's enough.
Yeah.
Too much solitude.
Yeah, introvert's paradise is coming to an end at this point, you know, where,
Yeah.
yes, okay, thank you. Would anyone else
Thank you.
care to comment on this?
Yes, Greg, Carol.
Hey, Carol.
I don't mind the solitude, but what I do mind is that I'm noticing that my physical body is starting to yearn to move. And normally I'll go to the gym and I'm pretty active, take walks, and I'm not feeling like I'm able to do that right now. And I do go out. I have a little place that I can walk around, but it's not really attending to the needs of my body. And what I notice now is that I'm starting to have some hip pain, which I have not had before. And so I just know that I've got to get out there and walk. But I feel like I don't want to get in my car and drive somewhere. I mean, of course I could, but I feel like if I do that, then I'm somewhat breaking the laws that they've given us now to contain this terrible virus, and I don't want to jeopardize anyone. I certainly don't want to jeopardize myself, but I am at the age that I have to be careful that I could easily one wrong interaction and bam, I could be sick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's thank you for sharing that. And I'm listening with an open heart, that sort of very direct message from your body for more walking and exercise, and this very real limitation about not being exposed to other people or getting in sort of other environments. Thank you, Carol.
Well said.
Ariella, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ariella.
For me, what do I need right now in this pandemic is I need peace of mind and I need clarity of thinking. And for me, that's a lot connected with connection, that my relationship should be in good order. So I try to take care of that. And whether it's with my kids or with friends or whatever it is. And that's the main thing. I want to be present through this. I don't want to afterwards think, oh, I was just waiting for it to end or something. Because I think there's so many lessons in this. There's so many lessons that are coming my way, our way. And I want to be present and to be clear. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
Sure, you're very welcome. And yes, it is, we don't know how long this is going to be. And since we're in this situation, I think it's wonderful that you want to be present and you want to kind of make sure that your relationships are, can be as healthy as they can be, and to use this opportunity to work on those a little bit. I'm going to move us on because I want to make sure that we have time to get to a nice long sharing this week. And if we have time later, people haven't had a chance to share. I will be hanging out after the hour to share a little longer. Oh, and there will be an update also on the new name for this meeting, which will start next week. And I have a couple more graphics to share based on your feedback from last week. So that will be afterwards. So our assumption this week is, once again, we've come back to there's a divine spark in everyone, which is occluded by our baggage. And part of the reason why I wanted to start with us talking about what we need is that it's very important that we, as part of having a divine spark, we also need to nurture and to take care of ourselves. And as we're going to see, honor has a lot to do with taking care of other people and noticing the needs of other people. But there is a very important precursor for that. And if people, just a quick reminder that when you're not speaking, if you could mute yourself, please. Okay, so an important precursor to taking care of other people is highlighted in this teaching from Rabbi Cook, who, and may I have a volunteer to read this, please?
I'll read it. The more lacking one is in inner perfection, the more nature will seek to gain perfection on an outer level. It is only in a state of low-level spirituality that there will be a desire to glorify oneself before others, both with the virtues he possesses or she possesses, and with others she does not possess. It is therefore...
Lois, let me pause you there, because let's just unpack this a little bit. So what is, and then I'll ask you to keep reading, and this is a question for the group. So what is Rav Cook saying here? What is the kind of main point of this first couple of sentences?
Well, can I speak?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this, it kind of addresses something that I've been feeling. I didn't get a chance to share. Everybody wanted to share. I think it was wonderful. But where it says low-level spirituality, that there will be a desire to glorify oneself before others. So I have really been missing relationships. I'm a very relationship-oriented person. That's how I feel good. And I have been feeling like I have a lot of Zoom meetings because I belong to a lot of things. I put a lot of things out there. I've got poetry group and writing groups and all sorts of groups. And now everything is on screen. And I feel like I just am living in a little box. And I'm just wondering if my relationships are going to be the same after all this is through, or like, does anybody miss me? I miss them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Anybody else feel like they're kind of living in a little box right now? Is that, anyone else sort of have that feeling from time to time? Yeah, I see a bunch of hands. Yeah, so thank you, Lois. Maybe to, so what I'm hearing is this kind of reminds you of these questions like, are other people missing me? And sort of wondering, what, I totally can see the connection to this. And there's a way that sort of question, I think, and what this reading speaks to me is it can sort of turn, like when we have that kind of question, it can turn in a real negative direction, where if we're not sort of feeling like we're getting enough, that can sort of turn into self-glorification, where suddenly there's this need to, well, if I'm not getting it elsewhere, I'm going to make sure. And this is when I was in the corporate world, unfortunately, I was really sort of fell into this trap pretty big, where I both needed external validation, but I really, felt this constant need to prove myself. And I didn't quite do into the telling people I was good at stuff that I didn't, but the stuff I was good at, I was very clear to make sure that everybody knew that. So Lois, can you finish the reading now?
Yes, it is therefore important for a person to enhance her level of inner perfection, and his self-assessment in relation to others shall always be in the proper measure.
So what does that mean, to enhance one's level of inner perfection?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, absolutely, Shelley.
I was thinking about the first part of the question about, about the inner perfection, and I think that's what happens is that, how you said, we start feeling that we're not getting those connections. So we start going out of ourselves to find those connections. And I guess for myself, I found myself being more with myself more at this time. And, you know, I've just been told that I can go back to work on the 18th of this month. And I'm a hairdresser, so I commiserate with your haircut. And for me, I was happy, but at the same time, I'm not happy because my level of care has become open now. You know, even though I'm going to be wearing a mask and that one's wearing a mask, I'm actually opening my bubble to everyone's bubble. Whereas everybody else is being told to stay in your own bubble. And so as I was listening to this, I was thinking to myself, you know, I don't have to go back to work because I right now don't think I should go back to work. I still feel, you know, there's 33 cases today, and I don't want us or me to be the experiment to see if it works. So I've come to the decision that I'm going to look after my own self-care, and also for everybody else, because, you know, I would hate to have someone in my chair and then the next person that comes in, even though I've cleaned, there's something in the air because somebody's decided to blow dry, which apparently we're not supposed to do. But you always know there's going to be that one person that says, oh, well, I'll do it anyway. And that's the sad part, because there is no thing in play right now telling us what we have to do. And so therefore I'm looking after my own self-perfection and instead of looking out for other people to give me my self-satisfaction. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Shelley. Well, that's a very real example where you're sort of thinking, okay, well, what do I need in terms of my own safety here and to feel comfortable in your own decisions? And then that very directly relates to how you are going to be interacting with other people. So having a self-assessment in relation to others will be in the proper measure. And one could imagine making a decision from a place of panic or insecurity or shame or embarrassment. And then, you know, when we're not whole, then maybe we're not going to make the best decision for ourselves, or maybe it's going to get projected out onto other people in some way, which would not be healthy. Any other thoughts on this, or anyone else like to comment?
Can I say something else?
Sure. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Keep going, Lois. I'm just messing around with the screen here. Okay.
In terms of Mussar, which I hope this group is going to continue to be the focus of, I know you're going to change the name, but I love it that it's Mussar. And I hope you won't change it.
Mussar. It's just to try to reach people who've never heard of Mussar before. So that's why I'm changing the name.
Okay, so I think this slide is just wonderful, and it's got all the answers in it, which is the title, Remember Your Divine Spark. And when you remember that, you can just sort of let that be, and you don't have to be trying to glorify yourself.
Thank you, Lois.
Greg?
Yeah, hi, Karen.
Hi. Thank you. I know I was a little late coming in and I've missed a few sessions. Please excuse me. I like this slide too very much, but I find one part of it a little daunting because it says the more one is lacking in inner perfection. Oh my gosh, perfection. Can't we just think that we're moving towards something better? But perfection is the idea of inner perfection itself overwhelms me because, you know, I don't think I could ever get there.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, when I first read that too, I was like, okay, well, I'm glad they haven't set the bar too high. You know, all we have to do is be perfect, in an inner way. So yeah, I think that's an important way to interpret this. Another way to think about it is if we have that divine spark, which is occluded by our baggage, one might argue that we have that inner perfection. It's just allowing to accept sort of that wholeness, those things that we already have. But I would say far be it from me to be Ralph Cook, but I think if I were to write this on my own, I might, I don't know what I would say, but it is certainly could be intimidating if we feel like we could never achieve that. Absolutely.
Oh, Greg?
Yeah.
Just one, sorry, I can't raise my hand. I like what you said, Carol. I was thinking about the second part of the last sentence, in that if we're focusing by moving forward, by developing Mussar traits in ourselves, moving toward that perfection in ourselves, that will show where we're lacking. And then when we go to our self-assessment in relation to others, that's where we'll get the proper measure, because we're not there yet either, and so we're not going to be judging others.
Thank you, Wendy. Judah, I saw you. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, since this is a Mussar group, I think we have to not use our usual definition of perfection, because I think in Mussar, the perfection is the middle ground, the evenness. So it's not like, in other areas where perfection means the top or, just whatever. This is just balancing. And I think that's much more doable.
Beautiful, Judah. Thank you. All right. So I think that's a good place to segue. So maybe we have another volunteer, maybe someone we haven't heard from yet, to look at the definition of honor, which is kavod in Hebrew.
I'll read it. This is Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Okay. Honor is the ability to recognize the humanity in other people, feel empathy, and treat them with respect, dignity, and even with reverence. Both humility and honor concern how we relate to other people. Humility focuses on knowing our proper place in the world. Honor focuses on the converse, giving others their due.
Thank you, Jack. So from Ralph Cook's previous statement, if we bring that together with the definition of honor, why, is that important? How do these two teachings sort of function together, or do they? Or maybe to put that another way, how does having sort of inner alignment, inner balance, how might that impact our ability to recognize the humanity in other people?
Well, it's Carol. I think that when you balance humility, then you no longer have any real delusions one way or another about yourself. You're not really full of yourself. You don't feel like you're worthless. So if you feel balanced, if you feel, I know my own worth, I don't overdo it, I know my own worth, I know how to be humble. I think it's better, it's easier to treat another person like, I know your worth.
Thank you, that's beautiful. So when you're feeling like you are comfortable in your own worth, then it's much easier to treat someone else with respect and to recognize their worth.
Suriela?
Yeah.
Am I muted? Hello? Hi. I had an interesting experience on the internet. I accidentally stumbled on a pro-Trump site, and I was absolutely appalled by people's thinking. I know that as a newspaper reporter, I know how to listen. I know how to hear people out. That said, it was really difficult for me to understand how people can, I guess I feel that this man is evil or crazy or something like that. And I don't truly understand how people, what brings people to support him. And I'd like to be able to recognize their humanity better than I do.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. I mean, because what I hear, you're not talking about Trump, you're talking about the people who support Trump. And what is, I think that is in the hidden teaching today when we're in our partner study. I'm going to be talking about that. What is, we have a big divide in this country, and you really hit the nail on the head. There are people who are really supporting someone who, some people really don't like at all. And those people feel that they're doing the right thing and supporting the right leader, and have judgments about the people who don't support him. And this teaching says we should be doing something differently. So that's a big challenge. Absolutely.
Is it necessary to honor someone without honor? Honor someone that does not possess? Where does honor start?
I think that,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I think so. There's two separate things. One is to recognize, it says, recognize the humanity in other people, feel empathy, treat them with respect, dignity, and perhaps reverence. That doesn't say to let them off the hook for the consequences of their behavior. Like, that doesn't mean that you need to stay in a relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship, it doesn't mean you stay in that relationship with them. And as a matter of fact, if we go to the next slide, okay, well, too much honor here is the example is flattery, but that could be also, staying in relationship with someone who doesn't treat you appropriately. So it is, but it's really one of the big challenges of this is that some people, are just going to rub us the wrong way, where they're not doing anything, overtly terrible. And then there's a whole gradation to some people are really not good people. And and maybe they've committed murders and other things. And how do we still, what's the appropriate way to treat them? How does honor come into play? Do we just say, well, I guess they're not really human? Or are they human despite the horrible things that they've done? That's the challenge.
Greg, I would like to just add that when we look at the evil and a good inclination as well, it's always one coin, had two sides. So what we do, I see honor, I need to maintain my position, my values, and grow it. And then in that way, I keep our side that I decided to be on. But some people just, they don't mind to do that. But understanding this good and evil going hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Yanis. Part of, like for me, when I look at politicians that I don't like, I really try not to hate them. They may be doing things that I completely disagree with, that I think are despicable, that I think are horrible. But I mean, for me, like if I go down that road of just having anger and hatred to them, it just harms me. And it hurts the way I might treat people who support, who are a voter, who I might, for that person, who I might otherwise be a good friend with. So this, these are ideals and opportunities for us to live up to. And it's how can we best show up in these circumstances? Now, what happens if we get to the other side of the spectrum? You know, where here it says if we have too little honor, we might be prone to rudeness. Does someone sort of maybe have an example from their own life, or they might want to share, where they've sort of fallen into one of these traps?
Oh yeah, happens all the time with me. I'm sorry to say, and it's I mean, happens all the time in these days with politics. And you know, I feel some people's belief are really dangerous to the life of our country, to the life of the citizens, to the peace of the world. And you know, I guess I'm rude. You know, I have no respect for them. So it's out of balance. There's no question about it. And I mean, actually, just before I came here, I almost didn't come here because I'm so upset. You know, I'm so upset because of the anger that it generated in me. But at the same time, it's like, how could I not be angry? I mean, it's like, you know, like with a black and white case with Hitler. You know, how can you not be angry? How can you respect those people? And so it's very difficult for me because, yeah, I mean, I'm stubborn and obstinate and whatever, and I realize it's, you know, low tov. It's not good. But, you know, justified anger is really bad. Anyway, I'm going through it. So I thought I'd raise my hand, own up to it.
Thank you, Judah. And I think you bring up an important point, you know, that sometimes, you know, this doesn't say never get angry. This doesn't say there aren't cases which to us seem very black and white. I guess the question is, think what it would say is, even in those cases, you know, there's no need to be rude. You know, you need to treat people with respect. You know, when a police officer is going to make an arrest, they might have to use, you know, physical force, but do they have to be verbally abusive and denigrating to the person that they're arresting? You know, that's, you know, I see plenty of people whose politics that I agree with on Facebook just behaving abhorrently, you know, just making fun of people on the other side. And that's, you know, that's an opportunity where I think we can all try to improve a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be the reading, which is going to lead into the sharing. And this is from Rabbi Shlomo Volbe. And he's talking about the value you can give another person is to treat them seriously. Saying hello, I've noticed you, shows someone that they're valued. And when you treat a person lightly and don't acknowledge them, and in some ways you're stripping them of their value. And part of this teaching comes from a play on the Hebrew words, because the Hebrew word for honor is kavod, which is the same root as the word for heavy, which is, I think, kaved. So it is, you know, treating someone seriously is treating them heavily, which is, you know, we are more used to this idea of treating someone lightly. So, so with this in mind, I am going to start to split us up into groups. And so I'm going to stop. And what we'll talk about is maybe something that's resonated with you. You can update what's kind of happening in your own life. And maybe how has the pandemic helped you see others differently? Are there people who you will take less lightly, or maybe others that you will treat less seriously? Okay. So, whoops, that's not where we're going. I'm going to stop the share here. Any comments while I'm setting up the rooms?
This is Briella again, but I've spoken, so maybe someone else.
Anyone else?
Can we see that quote from Rabbi Wolpe again? It was up there a very short time.
Yeah, I can put that up there again.
There it is.
Whoops, that was the quote from Mulby.
You had it.
There we go.
You did.
All right. Well, it's not letting me show this. So kind of in the spirit of thinking about treating others, taking them more seriously, thinking about who might we, I know for me, I've always tried to, in theory, kind of recognize people who, others might see as invisible, and trying to be polite to the people in the grocery store. But boy, this pandemic has really opened my eyes and made me feel like even my best efforts before probably weren't good enough. So that's one way where maybe I was treating people a little more lightly than I could have. Okay, so I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to open the rooms, and you'll see something that appears on your screen, which says join breakout room, and then we'll have a good chunk of time to have a conversation. Okay, so click on the join breakout room button, and I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, very good. Janet, Tammy. Okay, boom. All right. So for those of you who are watching on live, what our custom is, I'm going to take a look at my watch as I once again share my screen, and I put up another teaching. This is what I call the hidden teaching or the bonus teaching, which sometimes people come back and look at. So the quote, whoops, sorry about that. So there's 3 quotes here. And I call this the honor problem, the spiritual sickness which is afflicting our country. And I'd like to say that I've been teaching the readings on this slide since 2015 at least. So it was before the last presidential election. This is a problem which has been here before the election. It's a problem which is going to be with us after the next election, whoever wins. Our first reading is about Rabbi Akiva, who had 12,000 pairs of disciples who all died at the same time because they did not treat each other with respect. And I think the time they died was actually in the Omer, which is during this period of time that we're in the Jewish life cycle. So 12,000 pairs of disciples. They were study partners, just like the other people in this group are off studying together now. 24,000 people, they all died because they did not treat each other with respect. I think what the rabbis are teaching us in this passage from the Talmud is just how important it is, obviously, that we treat one another with respect. Like that like that reading from Rabbi Volbe, when you're not treating with someone with respect, it is almost like putting a curse on them. And this is what really, really worries me about our country for where it is today. We have so little respect between people. It is the divisions and the antipathy between people from different political points of view is really poisonous. It is really a huge, huge issue. It's gotten to the point where people can't even, agree when we're faced with a worldwide pandemic and calamity. People can't get it together to pull together. I know I talked about Facebook earlier. I have really gone out of my way not to unfriend people on Facebook because they have a different political viewpoint than I do. Whether they're an anti-vaxxer or whether it's a different political party, unless they're like racist or white supremacist, I generally don't unfriend them. But I have to say, that this denial and lack of respect towards the pandemic as a biologist, that's really hard for me to take. And that's where I've had to draw a new, I've really had to think about it. Is like, do I really want to stay Facebook friends with this person? Do I really want to stay in relationship with this person? Especially if it's not someone who I like went to high school with, you know, it's like random person who I met at an author's meeting. Do I want to stay in relationship with them? I want to stay in relationship with people with different points of view, but if someone's being disrespectful about the virus when my poor mom is lying in the hospital fighting for her life, I'm not real inclined to stay in relation. Anyway, that was a long digression. The rabbis give us a different vision for how we might live. And that's in our second bullet point here. Oh, I see Tammy and Shelley, are you guys back? Are you guys done with your talk? Tammy, you're
I got
muted.
lost out of my room. I was hoping you would send me back to my room.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping that too. I got a phone call and I was trying to disconnect, and I guess I disconnected from the thing.
Okay, let's see. Do you know?
I was talking with the person that doesn't have a face.
I was
You're
in
talk-
room 1.
Okay, let me see. Okay, Tammy, that's you. Or I mean, Shelley, that's you. And you were in room 1, Shelley?
Yeah, I think so.
Room 1.
I was with somebody who didn't have video.
Okay. So Shelley, I just assigned you to a room. Oh, I assigned you to the, oh, I did the wrong person to that room. Okay. Well, let's see.
Okay.
Tammy, did I send you to the wrong room?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try it again.
Okay.
Okay, so now you should have a new invitation.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye. Okay, so for those of you who are watching the recordings, sorry about that. Let's go back to the share. And what I was saying was that there's a different vision that the rabbis have put forward. There's a lot in the Talmud, a lot of disagreements between Rabbi Shammai and Rabbi Hillel, and they had like a whole school. They're almost like, you know, religious political parties. And although they disagreed, they would marry people from the other political party. So we could almost say, you know, if we look at the second part of this reading, this is to show you that they showed love and friendship towards one another, thus putting into the practice the scriptural text, love ye truth and peace. So when we're talking about truth, we all have our own truth. It's a soul trait we focused on, I think it was last week. We have our perspective that we hold dear and we don't have to give up, but we also can love peace at the same time. It's funny, one of my kids asked me the other night, would you have married mom if she was in the other political party? And, you know, I don't know if I would have or not, because I'm a pretty political person. But as my wife pointed out, you know, it used to be that things weren't so acrimonious, that we could disagree politically. So I don't know whether I would have or wouldn't have, but I think if someone held values that were really different to me, maybe I wouldn't have married them. But if we had similar values but different strategies about how to get there, yeah, I could definitely have seen that. Okay, so the final teaching is again about the houses of Hillel and Shammai, and they disagreed about a piece of Jewish law. And finally, a heavenly voice emerged and said, both these and those are the words of the living God, and the halakha, the Jewish law or Jewish practice, is in accordance with the house of Hillel. So what this divine voice was telling us is that there can be two right answers. That there can be two, people may have very different points of view, and both of them might be right. But at the end of the day, you have to decide according to Liv towards one of them. And in this case, the House of Hillel was defined as the right way. And one thing that this reminds me of is this discussion about reopening the economy, because I vehemently disagree with these people who talk about herd immunity, and it doesn't matter if some people get sick, and because the people who are going to get really sick are going to be the poor, or the people who are older, or the people with health conditions, or people without health insurance. And it's our job as a society, according to my values, to take care of everyone. But at the same time, there's a huge amount of suffering, which is caused by the shutdown. And in my town, there was this neighborhood kitchen store, which went out of business. And why should, if I wanted kitchen supplies, why can I do curbside pickup at Best Buy, but I couldn't do curbside pickup at this local kitchen store? And so there is an argument that the shutdown could be done in a different way than it's been done so far. Okay, I am going to now close the breakout room. So that's going to give everybody a minute to come back. And so any second now, we'll start to see people returning and reappearing. I will close this off. For those of you who are live, thank you for being here today. Thank you for hanging out. Once again, I do encourage you to kind of click on the Zoom link next time. You see that people are not rushing to come back. That means there's some very deep and in-depth conversations that are going on here. So that's kind of neat, kind of interesting. Maybe I'll open the rooms back up after 5 o'clock when people return. Let's see, how much time do we have left? 7 seconds. You're going to see, if you're watching, an explosion of people returning any second now, and boom, here they are. I always feel during the breakout sessions that when I close the rooms, there's 60 seconds to return. And there's still, in theory, people watching on Facebook Live or Zoom Live. So I'm done with the teaching I was doing, and I have to kind of talk and sort of keep things going. And it's always a great sign when there's not this big rush of people coming back, because obviously you must have been enjoying your conversations. And so that's wonderful to see. In our final couple of minutes, does anyone have anything they'd like to share about today's experience, or some realizations that maybe you've had about what you might do differently moving forward?
Carol had her hand up.
Lois, did you have something you were going to say?
I was pointing out Carol. She has her hand up. I didn't know if you.
Oh, Carol, sure.
Well, maybe she was just waving.
Yeah, maybe so.
Sorry.
No problem. Well, let's take a look at some, I'm going to start sharing the slides again. And there is one final thing that we can take a look at. And these are some of the actions in a Mussar practice. In the week ahead, we try to find one thing that we can do differently. So let's go around and someone just start reading one bullet, and then someone else kind of jump in after them. So please unmute yourself and begin.
Look for the divine spark in every person you meet.
Thank you.
Look for the good when you notice yourself judging others.
Greet others before they greet you.
Eliminate one shaming behavior.
Write a list of people who you will treat with more or less honor.
Thank you, Uriella. So these are a couple of things which maybe can inspire you. I notice some of these are a little bit harder when we're not out in the world. Greeting others before they greet you is perhaps a little bit tougher on Zoom than it would be in other sorts of occasions. But nonetheless, sometimes when I'm on a Zoom call with like 20 or 30 people, I'll send like a little private note to a friend or someone and say how they're doing. So that can always be a very sweet thing to do. Karen.
I've noticed that if I'm out walking, even behind a mask, if I wave at someone coming in the opposite direction or try to say hello first, they are really happy and they usually say hello or give a nice wave back. And that has made me feel so wonderful, because prior to all this, if I saw someone walking and I said hi, half the time they wouldn't say anything, or their head would be down looking at their phone. And now people are friendlier, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
I could say something.
Okay.
There is something that I was very challenged by, so I want to think about it this week, is how I can think better about the leader that we have, who, instead of anger, because no one of us was born with the intent of hurting a whole bunch of other people. So, the fact that someone is doing that is a signal that they have been hurt, and they have this, to the nth degree, a need for people to acknowledge or agree with them or whatever it is. But where is there an inroad to the humanity of this person? That's interesting.
So looking for the humanity in a leader who you disagree with. Yeah, that's a challenge. Absolutely. And I think it's important for everyone to be able to do that, to look for the humanity in someone they disagree with, because many people say, well, I need the other people to do that. But I feel like if I'm not willing to challenge myself, then how can I ask them to challenge themselves? And none of us have a monopoly on the right point of view. Okay. Well, we are going to do our closing meditation, and then people who are interested can stay behind and see the next iteration, help me decide on the final version of the new logo for the renamed group. Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes once again and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And now allow your attention to travel to the light that's filtering through your eyelids. This is the light of your divine spark. Allow that light to spread from your eyes down throughout your whole body. Feel that sense of warmth and love and wholeness and balance. And allow it to give you that feeling of centeredness and wholeness with which to face the challenges of the world today. Now tilt your head back and open your jaw and smile. Take a moment of gratitude for this hour together of calm and connection and peace. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you once again so much for being here today. I want to thank all of you who've been sort of sending good energy or prayers for my mother, who's still in the hospital with COVID, and things were looking very grim a couple of days ago. They didn't know if she would survive the night, and she did. And she started to gain energy and breathe a little bit more easier. So she's very much not out of the woods, but she certainly got through that very, very difficult evening. So I really do appreciate everyone's kind of support and prayers, and please keep that up. So thank you.